After Trump's landslide election win in early November, a record number of Americans are looking to leave the United States for Europe and Latin America. In this video, we're going to break down Trump's policies, what will be implemented, and we're going to focus on what you should do in the coming year, in 2025. Something that's interesting, and we want to start with this, is that Marco Rubio has been appointed as Secretary of State, right? We talked about this and how this will greatly impact relations between the United States and Latin America. And some pretty harsh statements have been made about the political systems of certain Latin American countries, including Venezuela, and how the US government is now contemplating interfering with Venezuelan politics. I mean, more than before. And it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, and certain statements have been made about how the situation in Venezuela could be resolved, including a takeover of the government, maybe replacing the current government. So this is going to be an interesting time for Latin America, for Venezuela. And the US has a prolonged history of interfering in Latin American politics, right? It is not the first time that the US is contemplating a serious intervention in a Latin American country and potentially replacing a leadership. It's not the first time that this is happening, right? So what can you expect after Trump's election win? As I have indicated at the very start of this video, a record number of Americans are looking to leave America for a more liberal place, they think. And we're talking about Democrats here. And this goes both ways, right? If Trump would not have won, if Harris would have won, more Republicans would be seeking to leave the United States now, right? Yes. So it goes both ways. What's interesting is that the people who are now looking to leave are Democrats, and they're looking to move to very different places than Republicans consider. Like, we're filming this video from Paraguay, a very capitalistic country, a very right-wing country, and so we don't really anticipate a lot of new arrivals, in Q1 2025. I'm sure some people will come here, but I don't expect it to be anything major, but we will see what happens. Enzo Melgarejo is a Paraguayan. He holds Paraguayan citizenship, and he is now going to explain to us what happened to a former ambassador here in Paraguay. Please tell us what happened exactly.
Well, in the last elections we had in Paraguay, people felt that US intervened a lot in the elections, specifically the Biden administration. Two of the candidates got called corrupt by the embassy, which is a pretty big statement. Up until now, there hasn't been any proof of said corruption, which I'm not saying it didn't happen, but people want proof. They want to see the facts, and the embassy of the United States has failed to provide it. So it all stands to believe that it's just a simple political decision. It is quite known that the ambassador is a member of the LGBTQ community and has pushed for that agenda here in Paraguay with no effect. And Paraguay is a very socially conservative country. The ambassador got explained several times that does not work here. People do not like to see that, and that the government is not going to pursue any type of involvement with that ideology. And in February, Marco Rubio came to Paraguay. He met with the president, and he talked out against the ambassador. He said that ambassador have too much power, that he shouldn't be able to decide foreign policy, especially on a country that was forgotten by the state, by the Secretary of State, and he said he will revert all sanctions or all damage done to Paraguay.
A super important point that we wanted to highlight in this video is that Trump made a pretty bold statement about interfering in the Mexican drug war that undoubtedly has destroyed not only the United States of America, but Mexico as well. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. In my experience, Mexico is one of the most dangerous countries in the entire world that I have been to. And the people, the expats that live in Mexico, they say, oh, it's not safe. But in reality, you can go to a lot of places during certain times. Like, I visited Puebla a few times, and it is a very dangerous city. The police of Puebla is highly corrupted. I was followed by police there in the past without any wrongdoing at all. I'd been stopped by them too. A lot of things happened to me in Puebla. And of course, that's just one city, you would say, right? But I think that Trump's aim to change the trajectory of Mexican politics will have a great impact on the whole continent of Latin America. And the situation in Mexico has gotten out of hand completely. Mexico used to be a very safe country. If you would have gone to Mexico in the 70s or the 80s, it was a very safe country. Nowadays, even my Mexican friends tell me, what are you doing in Mexico? You shouldn't be driving down these roads alone. And I had a gun pointed at me on a highway in Mexico. I think I had explained this story to you and also Jessica at some point. And anyone can kill you in Mexico and not get punished for it. You know,
Impunity.
there is no justice. There is no justice in Mexico, and it's gotten completely out of hand. The virus has grown so strong and so deep. It's so deeply embedded in the system there. There's so much corruption at every level that I don't think Mexico can solve it on their own anymore. They need interference to sort out the mess, and the mess is also bringing problems to the US. Another thing that I have spotted, because I'm crossing the border a lot, because I live in southern Texas, so I drove my vehicle a lot into Reynosa, so from McAllen into Reynosa, Mexico, and I know how little they check there. Like, you can bring pretty much everything with you from the US into Mexico. So a lot of Americans would smuggle guns from the US into Mexico, and most of the guns that are held illegally in Mexico, like the vast majority, are American guns. And so in the past, the Mexican president made a statement about suing the American gun manufacturers for letting all these guns flow from the US into Mexico. But is it really America's fault? Because the border checks in Mexico are not very professional. They're not doing much at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Trump administration will do about the war on drugs in Mexico and how this will impact the geopolitical landscape of whole Latin America.
Well, just to continue on that, Trump has declared that he will wage war on all cartels in Mexico, and that he will use, and I quote, covert and overt methods, and that they are not out of the table. So we're talking about a new age of American interventionism in Latin America. And Trump has also stated that any government official, any foreign government official working in conjunction with cartels will be punished, and they will, I don't know how specifically, but they will show proof of said corruption. I hope it happens. It's time Mexico gets peace, especially from these criminal cartels organizations. He also said he's going to name them terrorist organizations. They definitely are, but they are not named as such. They are named as organized crime, but they are not organized. They are organized crime, but they are also definitely terrorist organizations. You know, some of these immigration officers in the border have seen more death than US Navy soldiers in Iraq. Crazy situation down in the border of the US. But I also think another point to make from this policy is that violence will increase in Mexico. Violence will increase in the southern border of the United States, because the cartels are like that. They will retaliate. So yeah, I expect four tough years on the border. Hopefully all gets resolved quickly. Yeah, let's hope for the best.
Trump also announced that it is time to repeal worldwide income taxation for Americans. We all know that Americans abroad get taxed, meaning if you're a resident of a foreign country and let's say you don't spend any time in the US at all, you still have to file your tax return. You have to disclose all your foreign bank accounts, which is called the F-bar. You have to file the F-bar. Let's say you're an American abroad and you have bank accounts in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in South America. It doesn't matter where your bank accounts or financial accounts are located. You actually have to report all your accounts to the regulatory authority in the United States, and you must do it or you may get fined heavily. And the US is one of the only countries in the entire world that does that. What we had seen now in France is that they are considering doing the same thing. They're considering taxing their citizens abroad. Why? There's so many native Frenchmen and French women living abroad now that the government's just missing out on a lot of revenue, right? It makes sense, but is it really fair if you think about it? If you're abroad and you're not spending any time in your native country at all, in your country of citizenship, why should you be paying taxes to the country? It makes no sense at all. And the whole disclosure of foreign bank accounts, you know, this whole act, I mean, it's crazy because the government expects you to know all of this and to do all of this yourself, and oftentimes you can't. I mean, you can learn certain things yourself, but you're also worried about making a mistake when reporting your foreign income, your foreign bank accounts, because just making one mistake can cost you a lot of money because you could get fined. I really hope that this gets appealed and scraped completely because I think it's really unfair. Now, it's crazy that this even exists, you know. It's pure tyranny. It shouldn't exist, but that's how the US just gets more revenue in. However, it's not fair for the individual abroad. Now, Enzo, tell us, what do you see happening in terms of petrol prices and tariffs?
Okay, Donald Trump has said that he will reinstate economic sanctions on Iran that the Biden administration took out. And these sanctions are sanctions on fuel, sanctions on petrol. This will drive petrol prices up by at least a few percentages. Thus, when petrol prices are up, everything rises. Your gas rises, your food rises, your electricity bill rises, your everything will rise in price. We'll have to see how he handles that, if there's any way he can tackle that. I'm not so sure. It seems tough times are coming as well.
Trump is looking to deport illegal immigrants from the United States. And I know this has been on his agenda for a long time. It's very difficult to implement it because, you know, there's just a lot that needs to happen. But it is true that illegal immigrants shouldn't be in any country. If we compare the United States to Paraguay and how difficult it is to immigrate to Paraguay, you have to follow the legal process. You can't just come here illegally. You're not going to get any benefits. You know, there's no social welfare available to illegal immigrants here, exactly, right? Yeah. There's no money for it, and there's no willingness to provide it either. It just doesn't work. You're going to be on the streets. And so what's been happening over the past years is pure encouragement for people to come to the US without contributing anything at all. And of course, this cannot keep going for any longer. And the theory that the past party, in fact the current party that's still in charge, actually accelerated this process to gain voter support, it could be quite accurate that this theory is true, right? It is true. Yeah. So we will see how this pans out. But certain things are just very difficult to implement. If you just take a look at the wall, his proposed wall, I think only about 10% got built of it. And he was in office for 4 years, so technically it would take many decades to complete building the wall because they just can't agree on funding for it. Yeah. You know, so that's the biggest challenge. And Republicans and Democrats have to agree on funding these projects, and if there are disagreements or the budget falls short, it will take much longer to complete it. So, while certain promises are made, I don't think all of them will be kept. I don't think all promises are implementable, including the federal-backed cryptocurrency. I don't see this as being very implementable. I don't think that's going to happen. But that's how you gain voter support. You know, when you make promises that appeal to certain classes that may not vote you without these promises, that's how you gain voter support. However, if these things will ever be implemented or not is a whole other question. If you're concerned about Trump getting into office in January and you're looking to relocate to a destination where you have a lower cost of living, a higher quality of life, and just more peace of mind, please contact us. You should see our website displayed right on the screen. There's also a link in the description of the video. We are a relocation agency that helps Americans relocate to Europe and Latin America. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We appreciate you, and we see you on the next video.